Nigeria is grappling with an epidemic of mass abductions. They began when the Islamist Boko Haram group kidnapped nearly 300 girls a decade ago. Since then, others have followed the same path, targeting schools, villages and travellers. This year alone, Nigeria has recorded 68 mass abductions.
Another set of school children rescued from kidnappers. For some parents, there is relief.
We're feeling very bad, very, very bad, because we cannot expect a small child, 7 years, 9 years, 10 years, in the hands of bandits. How, no food, no drinking water. So how do you, in fact, you have to feel very, you just have to, how will you feel if it's your child?
In one of the country's worst mass abductions, gunmen attacked 2 schools in Kuriga in Nigeria's northwestern Kaduna state. They kidnapped hundreds of students and some staff members. Some managed to escape.
After our abduction and on our way into the bush, I saw a hidden pathway and I hid myself. I stayed there and fell asleep because I was tired. After more than an hour, I woke up and looked around and saw I was alone. So I started walking and found myself in a small village. I slept there until this morning.
Villagers say they've been living in fear for years.
My children were also abducted. We don't know what they're going through. We plead with the government to help us. We don't have any security in this community, no police outpost, no military presence, and no local vigilante. We're responsible for our own security, so they will invade and do whatever they feel like doing. Since the beginning of this problem of banditry, we've been having sleepless nights. We can't go to nearby markets and we can't go to our farm that's far from the village, or even the farms that are close by. It's very difficult to get food to eat, to say nothing of selling it. This year is the worst so far and we are afraid. We don't know what to do.
Mass kidnappings started 10 years ago when the terrorist group Boko Haram launched its campaign against Western education. But experts say these days criminal gangs are abducting people to get ransom money.
Nigeria's security architecture is not responsive enough to stop the menace from going out of control. It just seems that every young person who doesn't see a future in Nigeria, given the dire economic straits, it turns to kidnap for ransom as a means of livelihood.
Despite being illegal in Nigeria, huge ransoms are often paid. The government denies that it gave in to the kidnappers' demands for money to secure the release of the Kuriga students. It is celebrating their return as a successful security operation. But with mounting insecurity and little help from the government, families will continue to face the threat of kidnappings.
Now let's dig a bit deeper into this with Dr. Fatima Akilu. She's the Executive Director of the Neem Foundation. That's a Nigerian crisis response organization that supports communities affected by conflict and violence of this kind. And she joins us from London today. Dr. Akilu, thanks for joining us. And of course, there's great news about the release. But we just heard security experts and villagers saying the situation is getting worse and worse. Do you agree, and why is it?
Well, thank you so much for having me. Yes, we're really pleased that this particular set of kidnapped students have been released, and also they're released quite quickly. But overall, the issue of kidnapping is getting worse across a lot of the northern states. There are multiple reasons. In northern Nigeria now, we have so many groups that are operating. It's a very, very murky, complex situation. We have elements of Boko Haram, Islamic State, West Africa Province. We have different groupings of bandits and also criminal elements who have decided that one of the ways to raise money quickly is to kidnap for ransom. What we're witnessing is many communities that are currently in danger, many thousands now of students who have been kidnapped. And while these ones have been released, there are others that are still in captivity as we speak.
Now, we heard the villagers in our report complaining about that there's hardly any security in these villages, probably because they're quite remote. But is the government really doing enough to protect these people?
Well, I think that there are so many ungoverned spaces still. There are so many communities that have very poor or inadequate security. There was an initiative called Safe Schools that was launched 10 years ago, which was really designed to protect and provide security to schools. We have thousands and thousands of schools, literally. And I think the government is probably overwhelmed and unable at this particular moment to provide security for every school that needs it.
Now, can any grassroots efforts, communities, etc., help to tackle this problem?
Yes, and a lot of community efforts have reaping rewards. They are communities where they work with security sector. We have early warning mechanisms where they inform security sector when they see signs of insecurity. But I think you're right that the government will not be able to do this by itself, and we have to mobilize in a big way, in a way that we haven't done before. And we have to work together, both government, civil society, and communities come together and say enough is enough. It's actually 10 years this year since the abduction of the schoolgirls in Chi-bok. And in that time, I can only say that the situation has got a thousand times worse.
Now, apparently, in the beginning, those were politically or religiously motivated. Now, there's criminal gangs that are cashing in. What is driving this? There
are a number of reasons. Some of it is to do with endemic poverty, unemployment in the region. Also, maybe a failure of security on some level, where a lot of bandits have been allowed to roam for years. We also have groups of herders whose livelihoods has been taken away from them by decades of cattle rustling. And they have now formed into groups of bandits, and they're roaming around in northern Nigeria, and they're responsible for quite a number of the kidnappings that we're witnessing.
The Executive Director of the Neem Foundation, Dr. Fatima Akilu, thank you very much for your time and your insights.
Thank you so much.